There's a dangerous criminal trespassing on HOA property! What can I do? Officers, arrest them. They are criminals.
Hash the lakeside reckoning. The FBI agent's hand was moving toward his weapon. My 10-year-old grandson Tyler was frozen in terror behind me, and Victoria Blackwell was screaming into her phone live stream that we were dangerous criminals and trespassers on HOA property, while her boot literally rested on my splintered front door that she just kicked off its hinges. And I had maybe 3 seconds before this woman realized she just committed multiple felonies on video in front of 3,000 viewers and the Texas Attorney General who was standing calmly in my kitchen. But those 3 seconds felt like an eternity, because I knew this moment would either destroy her criminal empire or destroy everything I'd fought to protect. And my grandson was watching it all unfold, and I prayed he wouldn't see violence, wouldn't see his grandfather arrested or worse. Wouldn't have this sanctuary that had survived 4 generations become the site of his trauma. That's where 5 months of hell led us. To my grandfather's cabin, to a woman's rage-fueled final mistake, to the moment when institutional corruption met its reckoning. But you need to understand how we got here. You need to see what happens when someone with unchecked power decides a child doesn't belong. You need to witness what ordinary people can do when they refuse to be victims. Because this isn't just about an HOA dispute over property. This is about systematic corruption, about bullies who target children, about how one retired electrician and his grandson exposed a multi-million-dollar criminal conspiracy that reached the highest levels of state government. This is about what happens when evil finally goes too far. My name is Robert Henley. I'm 52 years old, retired electrician, widower, and as of 6 months ago, the legal guardian of my 10-year-old grandson Tyler. What I'm about to tell you happened at Lake Serenity, Texas, between March and August of last year. It involves embezzlement, fraud, child endangerment, political corruption, and the complete destruction of a woman who thought her connections made her untouchable. It involves my grandson, who just wanted to fish off the dock his great-great-grandfather built, and it involves me learning that sometimes protecting family means going to war with the most dangerous kind of enemy. Someone with power who enjoys using it to hurt people. This is the story of how a 10-year-old boy's tears brought down a criminal empire, how a century-old cabin became ground zero for a federal investigation, and how we proved that even in modern America, justice is still possible if you're willing to fight for it. I inherited my grandfather's cabin in February. Old Jack Henley had built it in 1947 with his own hands, 2 acres of lakefront property with a dock, a boathouse, and the kind of peace you can't buy at any price. He'd raised my father there. I'd spent every summer of my childhood there. The place was in my blood. When Jack died at 97, he left the cabin to me with a handwritten note tucked into the deed. Robert, this land has kept our family safe and sane for 76 years. Don't let anyone take it from you. Some things are worth fighting for. I didn't understand what he meant then. I would. The timing was bittersweet. My daughter Sarah had died in a car accident 4 months earlier, leaving Tyler orphaned at age 10. His father had never been in the picture. I was all Tyler had left, and he was all I had left. We were 2 broken people trying to figure out how to be a family. Tyler had been in therapy since his mom died. Grief counseling, trauma processing, the works. The therapist said he needed stability, nature, and space to heal. The cabin was perfect. We moved in during the first week of March. The cabin needed work, plumbing updates, electrical repairs, new roof shingles. But it was structurally sound, and the location was paradise. 2 acres of property, 100 feet of lake frontage, surrounded by pine trees and peace. The nearest neighbor was 300 yards away. Tyler loved it immediately. For the first time since Sarah's death, I saw him smile. Really smile, not the polite grimace he'd been giving adults who asked how he was doing. He discovered the dock, the old rowboat, the fishing rods in the shed. He caught a bass on his second day and insisted we take a photo to show Grandpa Jack in heaven. We were healing, finally. I should have known it wouldn't last. The Lake Serenity Homeowners Association had been formed in 1998, decades after my grandfather bought his land. Most of the lake properties had been developed in the 90s and 2000s, turning what had been a quiet fishing lake into a recreational destination with vacation homes and year-round residences. When the HOA formed, my grandfather had refused to join. His property predated theirs by 50-plus years. He had original survey maps, water rights dating to 1947, and a deed that explicitly included lake access and usage rights that superseded any future development restrictions. The HOA had left him alone mostly. Old Jack was stubborn, well-liked, and had more legal documentation than most lawyers. Nobody wanted that fight. But I wasn't old Jack. I was new, an outsider, even though my family had been there longer than anyone. And the current HOA president, Victoria Blackwell, didn't like outsiders. I met her on our 9th day at the cabin. Tyler and I were on the dock, him fishing, me reading a book in an old lawn chair. It was a perfect Saturday morning, temperature in the mid-70s, lake calm as glass. A white Cadillac Escalade pulled into my driveway, music thumping loud enough to scare every fish within 100 yards. Tyler's line went slack as the bass he'd been playing scattered. "Grandpa, someone's here," Tyler said, disappointed about losing his fish. I stood up as a woman emerged from the Escalade. She was probably 55, with platinum blonde hair in an aggressive bob, designer athleisure wear, oversized sunglasses, and the kind of walk that announced she owned everything she stepped on. She marched down to the dock without invitation, her heels clicking on the old wood planks. "You must be the new owner," she said, not offering a hand. "I'm Victoria Blackwell, president of the Lake Serenity HOA. We need to talk." "Robert Henley, this is my grandson Tyler." I kept my voice friendly. "What can I help you with?" Victoria looked at Tyler like he was a stain on her carpet. "Is he a permanent resident?" "I'm his legal guardian. We live here, yes." She pulled out her phone and started taking photos of the dock, of the cabin, of Tyler. "This property is in violation of multiple HOA codes." "Ma'am, this property isn't part of the HOA. My grandfather built this cabin in 1947. Your association was formed in 1998. We predate you by 50 years. Victoria smiled, but it was the kind of smile a shark gives. Everyone on Lake Serenity is part of the HOA. It's a lake-wide mandatory membership. You inherited the property, you inherited the obligations. I have documentation showing otherwise. I don't care what documentation you think you have. The dock is non-compliant. The boathouse is unpermitted. Those solar panels on your roof are aesthetic violations. And children under 12 are not permitted to use lake facilities without HOA-certified adult supervision. Tyler looked up at me, confused and worried. "Grandpa, I can't fish." "You can fish, buddy. Don't worry." I turned back to Victoria. "Ma'am, I appreciate you stopping by, but this property has water rights and lake access independent of the HOA. If you have concerns, you can submit them in writing, and I'll review them with my attorney." Victoria's expression hardened. "I'm not asking, Mr. Henley. I'm informing. You have 7 days to register with the HOA, pay the back dues for the past 6 years at $800 per year, submit architectural review applications for all structures, and comply with lake usage regulations, or face enforcement action." Enforcement action. Fines, liens, legal proceedings, whatever it takes to bring this property into compliance. She turned and walked back to her Escalade, got in, and drove away with her music still blasting. Tyler's hands were shaking. "Grandpa, are we in trouble?" I knelt down next to him, putting my hands on his shoulders. "No, buddy. We're fine. That lady doesn't have authority over our property. Your great-great-grandpa Jack made sure of that a long time ago." "Then why was she so mean?" "Good question. Some people like being in charge. Don't worry about it." But I was worried, because I'd seen that look in Victoria's eyes. She wasn't just enforcing rules, she was enjoying the power. 2 days later, I received a certified letter. HOA violation notice. 8 separate citations: unpermitted dock, unpermitted boathouse, unpermitted solar panels, non-compliant roof color, unapproved exterior lighting, prohibited satellite dish, unregistered watercraft, and minor child using lake facilities without certification. Each violation carried a $500 fine. Total, $4,000, due in 14 days. I called the number on the letter and reached Victoria's personal cell phone. Lake Serenity HOA, Victoria speaking. Ms. Blackwell, this is Robert Henley. I received your violation notice. As I mentioned, this property isn't part of the HOA, my grandfather's deed. Mr. Henley, I've heard your claims. They're irrelevant. Pay the fines or face legal action. I'd like to request a hearing before the HOA board. Denied. The violations are clear. There's nothing to discuss. Texas law requires HOAs to provide hearings for contested violations. Then hire a lawyer and sue me. Until then, pay up or I'll place a lien on your property. She hung up. I hired a lawyer that afternoon. His name was Michael Torres, a property attorney who'd been practicing for 25 years. I showed him my grandfather's deed, the survey maps, the water rights documentation. Michael reviewed everything carefully. Mr. Henley, your property is absolutely not subject to HOA jurisdiction. The deed is crystal clear. The water rights predate the HOA by decades. They have zero legal authority over you. So what do I do about the fines? Ignore them. They're not legitimate. If they try to place a lien, we'll fight it and win easily. But I need to warn you, some HOAs are run by people who don't care about the law. They use intimidation and harassment. If this Victoria Blackwell is one of those, she might make your life difficult even though she has no legal standing. How difficult? Depends on how petty she wants to be. Victoria wanted to be very petty. Over the next 2 weeks, she launched a campaign of harassment that started small and escalated rapidly. First came the social media attacks. Victoria ran a Facebook group called Lake Serenity Community Watch with over 300 members. She posted photos of my cabin, calling it an eyesore and a non-compliant property bringing down neighborhood values. She posted photos of Tyler fishing, claiming unsupervised minor violating lake safety regulations. Neighbors I'd never met started commenting. Some defended me, noting the property had been there for decades, but others, clearly Victoria's allies, piled on. If he won't follow the rules, he should leave. We have standards here for a reason. His brat is probably scaring the fish away from the good fishing spots. They called my 10-year-old grandson a brat, a child who'd lost his mother 4 months ago. Tyler saw the posts. A friend from school whose family had a lake house showed him on her phone. He came to me crying. "Grandpa, why do they hate me? I didn't do anything bad." I held him while he sobbed. They don't hate you, buddy. They don't even know you. Some people just say mean things on the internet because they're unhappy. But they said I'm a brat. They said I'm ruining the lake. They're wrong. You're a good kid. You've been through so much, and you're still kind and brave. Don't let strangers on the internet tell you who you are. But the damage was done. Tyler became self-conscious about fishing. He'd ask me constantly if it was okay, if he was allowed, if someone would yell at him. Victoria's next move was physical harassment. She started driving past our cabin multiple times a day, always slowing down, always staring, sometimes taking photos. If Tyler was outside, she'd honk her horn loudly, making him jump. One afternoon, Tyler was playing with a model boat in the shallow water near the dock. Victoria pulled up, got out of her Escalade, and walked down to the water. "You boy, what's your name?" Tyler looked terrified. "Tyler." "Tyler what?" "Tyler Henley." "Well, Tyler Henley, you're trespassing on HOA-controlled lake waters. That toy boat is an unregistered watercraft. If I catch you out here again without proper permits and adult supervision, I'm calling the sheriff." I was in the shed and heard raised voices. I came out to find Victoria standing over my grandson, who was trying not to cry. "Ma'am, step away from my grandson." Victoria turned to me with a smug smile. I was just informing him of the regulations. "You were intimidating a child. Leave, now. This is HOA property. I have every right to be here. This is my private property. The lake frontage is mine under the original deed. You're trespassing. Leave, or I'm calling the sheriff." Victoria laughed. "Go ahead, call them. My nephew is Deputy Chief Derek Blackwell. He knows all about your violations. Good luck with that." She left, but the threat was clear. She had connections in law enforcement. That night, Tyler had a nightmare. He woke up screaming about a blonde woman chasing him, telling him he didn't belong. I held him until he fell back asleep, and I made a decision. I wasn't leaving, and I wasn't letting Victoria Blackwell terrorize my grandson. I started documenting everything. Every time Victoria drove past, I photographed her vehicle. Every social media post, I screenshotted and saved. Every interaction, I wrote down with dates and times. I installed security cameras covering the driveway, the dock, and the cabin perimeter. Michael Torres, my attorney, filed a formal complaint with the HOA board challenging the violations and requesting a hearing. We cited Texas property law, my grandfather's deed, and the harassment Tyler and I were experiencing. The board's response came from Victoria personally. Request denied. Violations stand. Pay within 7 days or face lien proceedings. Michael filed a lawsuit in county court, seeking a declaratory judgment that my property was not subject to HOA jurisdiction, and requesting a restraining order against Victoria for harassment. Victoria's response was to escalate further. 1 week after we filed the lawsuit, I woke up at 2 in the morning to a loud crash. I grabbed my phone and checked the security cameras. Someone had thrown a brick through my truck's windshield. The cameras caught a figure in dark clothing, but the angle and darkness made identification impossible. I called the sheriff's department. The responding deputy was professional, but not particularly helpful. Probably teenagers. Lake gets a lot of that kind of thing. File a report and contact your insurance. Can you review my security footage? Sure, we'll take a copy, but unless you can ID the suspect, not much we can do. The deputy took the footage and left. I never heard anything back. 2 nights later, someone slashed all 4 tires on my truck. Again at 2 a.m. Again caught on camera but too dark to identify clearly. This time, when I called the sheriff's department, I got Deputy Chief Derek Blackwell himself, Victoria's nephew. He arrived 30 minutes later, a tall man in his 40s with his aunt's same cold smile. "Mr. Henley, I understand you're having some vandalism issues. Someone slashed my tires. Second incident this week. Security footage." I showed him. He barely glanced at it. "Can't see much. Probably kids. You know, you're pretty isolated out here. If you kept having problems, might be safer to move somewhere with better neighborhood watch." The implication was clear. Leave, or the problems continue. "Deputy Chief, are you suggesting I should move because you can't or won't investigate crimes on my property?" I'm suggesting that Lake Serenity is a tight-knit community. People who don't fit in sometimes have difficulties. Just an observation. After he left, I upgraded my security cameras to higher resolution with better night vision, and I started researching Victoria Blackwell. What I found was disturbing. Over the past 8 years, 17 families had moved away from Lake Serenity after disputes with the HOA. 17 families in a community of just over 100 homes. That was an abnormally high turnover. I found their names through property records and started reaching out. Most didn't want to talk, still afraid even after leaving, but 3 agreed to speak with me confidentially. Richard and Martha Garrison had lived on the lake for 12 years before moving in 2019. Victoria targeted us because we asked to see the HOA financial records, Richard told me over the phone. She issued violation after violation. Our grandkids couldn't visit without her harassing them. She told our 9-year-old granddaughter that she was too noisy and didn't belong at the lake. Made the child cry. We finally sold at a loss just to get away. The Patterson family had left in 2020. Victoria issued fake violations constantly, Mrs. Patterson said. When we fought back, someone vandalized our property repeatedly. Broken windows, slashed tires, spray paint. The sheriff's department did nothing. We think Victoria's nephew was protecting her. We left because we had 3 young kids and didn't feel safe. James Wu had sold his property in 2021. I'm an attorney, so I knew Victoria's violations were bogus. I challenged her, and she made my life hell. But the worst part was what I discovered when I looked into the HOA finances. She'd been embezzling for years, creating fake vendor companies and billing the HOA for services never rendered. I tried to report it to the board, but they were all her puppets. When I threatened to go to authorities, my property was vandalized so badly, including arson to my boathouse, that my insurance cancelled. I had to sell. I asked James if he'd kept any evidence. Some, but not enough to prosecute without access to current records. Why? Because she's doing the same thing to me and my grandson, and I think it's time someone stopped her. James went quiet for a moment. Then, if you're serious about fighting her, you need to know what you're up against. Victoria's husband is William Blackwell. He's the state treasurer, connected to the governor, multiple state legislators. Victoria uses his influence to make problems disappear. People who cross her don't just deal with the HOA. They deal with state bureaucracies mysteriously auditing them, permits getting denied, business licenses getting questioned. It's systematic corruption. How is she not in prison? Because nobody's been able to prove it. She's careful, and she has protection. After that conversation, I knew 3 things. First, Victoria was running a criminal enterprise. Second, she'd been doing it for years without consequences. Third, she wasn't going to stop unless someone made her. I decided that someone would be me. I contacted the Texas Attorney General's office and filed a formal complaint detailing Victoria's harassment, the pattern of families being driven out, and the allegations of HOA embezzlement. I attached statements from the families I'd interviewed and the documentation James Wu had kept. 2 weeks later, I received a call from someone who introduced herself as Sarah Mitchell, Assistant Attorney General for the Public Integrity Unit. Mr. Henley, I've reviewed your complaint. I need to be honest with you. Victoria Blackwell has been on our radar for a while, but we haven't been able to build a prosecutable case. Her husband's position makes this politically sensitive. We need ironclad evidence. Are you willing to help us get it? What do you need? Access to current HOA financial records, documentation of her harassment, evidence of any crimes she commits, and patience, because this will take time. If she realizes we're investigating, she'll destroy evidence and disappear behind lawyers. She's targeting my grandson. He's 10 years old and he lost his mother 4 months ago. Victoria is traumatizing him because I won't pay fake fines. I'll do whatever it takes to stop her. Then we'll work together. But Mr. Henley, you need to understand, Victoria Blackwell is dangerous. If she feels threatened, she'll escalate. Are you prepared for that? I thought about Tyler's nightmares, about him being afraid to fish off his own dock, about a child being called a brat by strangers on the internet. I'm prepared. Over the next 6 weeks, things got worse before they got better. Victoria, frustrated that I wasn't backing down, increased her harassment of Tyler. She started showing up at his school. Tyler attended Lakewood Elementary, about 15 miles from the cabin. Victoria didn't have children or grandchildren at the school, but she volunteered for the annual fundraiser and used that as an excuse to be on campus. Tyler's teacher called me one afternoon. Mr. Henley, I need to make you aware of an incident. Mrs. Blackwell approached Tyler during lunch recess. She told him that his grandfather was a criminal who was stealing from the community and that Tyler should be ashamed. Tyler became very upset. We've asked Mrs. Blackwell to leave campus and we're restricting her volunteer access. I picked Tyler up early. He was quiet in the truck, staring out the window. Buddy, Mrs. Henderson told me what happened. Is it true, Grandpa? Are you a criminal? My heart broke. No, Tyler, I'm not a criminal. That woman is lying because she's angry that I won't do what she wants. Why does she hate us so much? I don't know, buddy. Some people are just mean, but we're not doing anything wrong, and we're not leaving our home. I wish Mom was here. She'd know what to do. I pulled over and hugged him while he cried. Your mom would be so proud of how brave you've been, and she'd want us to stand up to bullies, not run away from them. I'm not brave. I'm scared all the time. Being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you keep going even when you are scared. And you've been doing that. I'm proud of you. That night, I got a call from Sarah Mitchell at the AG's office. Mr. Henley, we've made progress. We've been investigating Victoria's shell companies. She's created at least 7 fake businesses and has been billing the Lake Serenity HOA for services never rendered. Conservative estimate. She's stolen over $400,000 over 8 years. Can you arrest her? Not yet. We need current financial records to prove the money's still flowing and to tie it directly to her. The HOA banks at First Lakeside Credit Union. We're working on subpoenaing records, but that takes time. In the meantime, we're building a broader case. We think she's part of a larger network. Her husband's office has connections to multiple HOAs across 3 counties. We're looking at a potential multi-million-dollar fraud ring. What do you need from me? Keep documenting her harassment, especially anything involving your grandson, and if she commits any crimes on your property, make sure you have it on video. We're going to get her, Mr. Henley, but we need to do it right. Victoria's harassment entered a new phase, physical intimidation. She started parking her Escalade across my driveway, blocking me in. The first time, I called the sheriff's department. Deputy Chief Derek Blackwell responded personally. Mr. Henley, my aunt says you've been harassing her. Now you're making false police reports. Your aunt is blocking my driveway. That's illegal. Looks like a misunderstanding about property lines. Work it out between yourselves. He left without doing anything. I documented it and sent it to Sarah Mitchell. Victoria started showing up at the cabin unannounced, walking onto my property without permission, taking photos, peering in windows. Every time I confronted her, she'd claim she was conducting HOA compliance inspections. You have no authority here, I'd tell her. I have all the authority I need. This is HOA jurisdiction. It's not. My lawyer has filed. Your lawyer is wasting your money. You're going to lose. And when you do, I'm going to make sure you lose everything. Tyler started having panic attacks when he saw her white Escalade. He'd run inside, hide in his room, and refuse to come out until she left. I took him back to his therapist. She was blunt. Mr. Henley, Tyler is being re-traumatized. He lost his mother, and now he's being targeted by an adult authority figure who's making him feel unsafe in his home. If this continues, the psychological damage could be long-term. What can I do? We can't leave. This is our home. Then the harassment has to stop. Is there legal recourse? We're working on it. But legal recourse was slow. The AG's investigation was thorough but time-consuming. The subpoenas for bank records were being challenged. Victoria's husband was using his connections to slow the process. Meanwhile, Victoria was escalating daily. She began using the Lake Serenity Facebook group to organize harassment. She posted a photo of Tyler on the dock with the caption, "This child continues to violate lake safety regulations. HOA members should report any sightings to authorities. We must protect our lake." She was asking neighbors to spy on and report a 10-year-old child. The post got 43 comments. Some people defended Tyler, but others called him entitled, a menace, and suggested his grandfather should teach him respect. Tyler's classmates saw it. Kids at school started asking him why he was banned from the lake. One boy called him the HOA criminal kid. Tyler came home crying, "Grandpa, I want to leave. Let's just go somewhere else. I hate it here." I sat with him on the porch, looking out at the lake Jack Henley had loved, where my father had learned to fish, where I'd spent the best summers of my childhood. "Tyler, this land has been in our family for 76 years. Your great-great-grandfather built this cabin with his own hands. Your mom loved this place. If we leave because a bully scared us away, we lose that. We lose what he built. We lose our history. But I'm scared. I know, I'm scared too, but we're going to get through this. That woman is breaking laws. She's going to get caught. We just have to hold on a little longer." "How much longer?" "I don't know, buddy, but I promise you it's going to get better." I hoped I was right. The breaking point came 3 weeks later. Tyler and I were inside the cabin eating dinner when the security system alert went off. Someone was on the property. I checked the cameras and saw Victoria's Escalade in the driveway and Victoria herself walking around the cabin, trying to peer in windows. I stepped outside. "Victoria, you're trespassing. Leave immediately." She turned to me with a smile. "I'm conducting an HOA inspection. Stand aside." "You have no legal authority. Leave, or I'm calling the police." "Call them, call my nephew. See how far that gets you." She walked toward the dock, where Tyler's fishing rod was leaning against the railing. She picked it up, looked at it, and threw it into the lake. "Unsecured equipment. Violation." Tyler had come to the door and saw it happen. "Grandpa," she threw away my rod. Victoria turned to Tyler. "You don't belong here, boy. Your grandfather is a squatter. This property will be seized by the HOA and you'll be removed. The sooner you accept that, the better." Tyler's face crumpled. I moved between him and Victoria. "Tyler, go inside." He ran inside, sobbing. I looked at Victoria. "You just threatened and intimidated a child on video. That's a crime." "Who's going to believe you? I'm the HOA president. You're a nobody squatting on HOA land. My husband knows the governor. You think you can touch me?" She got in her Escalade and left. I checked on Tyler. He was in his room, curled up on his bed. "I hate her, Grandpa. I wish she'd just disappear." "I know, buddy, but she's going to face consequences for what she's doing. I promise." I immediately sent the security footage to Sarah Mitchell. Her response came within the hour. "This is good. We're accelerating our timeline. How would you feel about helping us set a trap?" Sarah Mitchell's plan was elegant. The AG's office had been building a case against Victoria for weeks, coordinating with the FBI on the broader HOA fraud investigation. They had evidence of embezzlement, fraud, and conspiracy involving Victoria, her husband, and at least 4 other HOA presidents across central Texas. But they needed Victoria to commit a crime in front of credible witnesses to break through her husband's political protection. "She's obsessed with your property," Sarah explained during a secure phone call. "She's escalated from harassment to threats to property damage. She's committed crimes on camera, but she thinks her connections protect her. We want to create a situation where she can't hide behind her husband's influence." "What kind of situation?" "We're going to stage a meeting at your cabin. I'll be there in an official capacity. We'll also have FBI agents undercover as contractors working on your property. We'll set up additional cameras, hidden. And we're going to let Victoria know, through a controlled leak, that you're meeting with state officials about the HOA dispute. She won't be able to resist confronting you. You want her to show up and commit crimes on camera in front of the Attorney General." "Exactly. We've been monitoring her social media. She's addicted to live streaming confrontations because it makes her followers think she's powerful. We believe she'll live stream storming your property, thinking she's rallying support. Instead, she'll create evidence we can use in federal court." What if she gets violent? We'll have agents on site. You and Tyler will be protected, but I need your consent. This could be dangerous. I thought about Tyler's nightmares, about him being afraid to fish, about Victoria calling him a brat and throwing his fishing rod into the lake. Let's do it. The setup took 1 week. Undercover FBI agents posing as contractors installed hidden cameras throughout the property and in the cabin. They also did legitimate repairs, new roof shingles, dock reinforcement to sell the cover story. Sarah Mitchell arranged to visit the cabin on a Saturday morning under the pretense of reviewing property documents for the court case. The controlled leak was simple. Sarah had a clerk in the county recorder's office, who Victoria monitored obsessively, file a public records request for my grandfather's original deed and water rights. She also had the clerk mention to a known Victoria ally that state officials were reviewing the Lake Serenity HOA situation. We knew Victoria would see it. We knew she'd react. The question was how. Saturday morning arrived. Tyler was with my sister in Austin. I wasn't taking any chances with his safety. Sarah Mitchell arrived at 9 a.m. in an official state vehicle. She was in her late 40s, professional, carrying a briefcase full of legal documents. We sat at my kitchen table, ostensibly reviewing property records, while FBI agents disguised as contractors worked on the roof and dock. Hidden cameras recorded everything. We were wired for audio. A team of agents was positioned in the woods surrounding the property, invisible but ready. At 10:15 a.m., we got the alert. Victoria's Escalade was approaching. Sarah looked at me. Are you ready? Let's finish this. Victoria's Escalade came flying up the driveway, tires spitting gravel. She parked at an angle, blocking the driveway, and got out with her phone already recording. Good morning, folks, she announced loudly to her phone. I'm here at the illegal squatter property on Lake Serenity, where the criminal Robert Henley is currently meeting with corrupt state officials to try to steal HOA property. We're going to put a stop to this right now. She had over 3,000 viewers on her live stream. I could see the count on her phone screen from the window. Sarah stood up calmly. Mr. Henley, stay here, please. She walked outside, and I followed, staying on the porch. The FBI agents continued working, acting like contractors, but I knew they were ready to move. Victoria marched up to Sarah. Who are you? I'm Sarah Mitchell, Assistant Attorney General for the state of Texas. Who are you? Victoria's confident expression flickered for a second. Then she recovered, playing to her audience. I'm Victoria Blackwell, president of the Lake Serenity HOA. This man, she pointed at me, is illegally occupying HOA property. I'm here to conduct an inspection and issue eviction notice. Ma'am, this is private property. You're trespassing. HOA property. I have authority here. No, you don't. This property predates the HOA by decades and is not subject to HOA jurisdiction. I'm ordering you to leave. Victoria laughed into her phone. Look at this, folks. State officials protecting a criminal. This is corruption at the highest level. Sarah remained calm. Ma'am, I'm giving you one opportunity to leave peacefully. If you refuse, you'll be arrested for trespassing. Arrested? By who? You. Victoria stepped closer to Sarah, aggressive. You have no authority here. I know people. My husband is the state treasurer. You're nobody. Ma'am, step back. Victoria didn't step back. She pushed past Sarah, heading toward the cabin. I'm conducting my inspection. You can't stop me. Sarah spoke clearly into the wire she was wearing. Subject is attempting forced entry. Move in. Victoria reached the cabin door, which was closed. She tried the handle. Locked. She looked at her phone, still live streaming. Look at this. They've locked me out of HOA property. This is theft. Then she did something I didn't expect. She stepped back and kicked the door. Hard. The old wood splintered but held. She kicked it again. The frame cracked. Third kick, and the door flew inward off its hinges. HOA inspection in progress, she shouted, stepping inside. and found herself face to face with Sarah Mitchell, who'd calmly walked around to enter through the back door, and 3 FBI agents in tactical gear who'd come through the side entrance. Victoria froze. Her phone was still live streaming. 3,000 plus viewers were watching. Sarah spoke clearly. "Victoria Blackwell, you are under arrest for criminal trespassing, destruction of property, obstruction of a federal investigation, and assault on a state official. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." Victoria's face went white, then red, then she screamed, "This is a setup. This is corruption. You're all corrupt." She tried to run. The FBI agents caught her in 2 steps. They cuffed her while she screamed threats and accusations into her still live-streaming phone until one agent finally took it from her. As they led her out, more agents emerged from the woods. Another team pulled up in unmarked vehicles, and a 3rd team was simultaneously executing search warrants at Victoria's home, her husband's office, and the Lake Serenity HOA office. Sarah walked over to me. "It's over. We have everything we need." I watched Victoria being loaded into a federal vehicle, still screaming, and felt a weight lift off my shoulders that I didn't realize I'd been carrying. What happens now? Now she faces federal charges, and we dismantle the entire network. Victoria's arrest was just the beginning. Within 48 hours, the investigation expanded dramatically. The FBI seized records from Victoria's home and found evidence of the broader conspiracy. Victoria and her husband William had been running a sophisticated HOA fraud operation across 3 counties for over a decade. They'd recruited 4 other HOA presidents, all women, all using the same tactics: harassment, fake violations, property damage, and embezzlement through shell companies. The total fraud exceeded $4.2 million stolen from over 800 homeowners. William Blackwell's state treasurer's office had been used to shield the operation. He directed state auditors away from suspicious HOA finances, had bureaucratic investigations killed, and had used his influence to intimidate victims who tried to fight back. Federal prosecutors charged Victoria with 17 counts of embezzlement, 12 counts of wire fraud, 8 counts of conspiracy, 5 counts of witness intimidation, 3 counts of stalking, 2 counts of child endangerment, and 1 count each of assault on a state official, destruction of property, and obstruction of justice. William Blackwell was charged with conspiracy, racketeering, abuse of official position, wire fraud, and obstruction of justice. The other 4 HOA presidents involved in the network were arrested within a week. The FBI seized over $3 million in cash and assets. The Lake Serenity HOA immediately collapsed. The remaining board members resigned en masse. Homeowners, discovering they'd been defrauded for years, filed a class action lawsuit against Victoria personally and against the HOA's insurance carrier. And I finally got to bring Tyler home to a safe cabin. The day Tyler came back from my sister's house, I picked him up and drove back to Lake Serenity together. As we approached, Tyler got quiet. "Is she really gone, Grandpa?" "She's really gone, buddy. She's in jail. She can't hurt you anymore." "Promise." "I promise." We pulled into the driveway. The FBI had repaired the door they'd broken during the arrest and had even fixed some other things as an apology for the inconvenience. The cabin looked peaceful, just like it had when Jack Henley had built it. Tyler got out slowly, looking around like he expected Victoria to jump out from behind a tree. But the lake was calm, the woods were quiet, and we were finally safe. "Can I fish?" he asked tentatively. "You can fish anytime you want, buddy. This is your home." He ran to the shed, got a rod, and headed to the dock. Within 10 minutes, he had a line in the water and a smile on his face. I sat on the porch, watching him, and for the first time in months, I could breathe. The trial took place 7 months later. Federal prosecutors had built an overwhelming case. The evidence included financial records, testimony from dozens of victims, emails and texts showing the conspiracy, and that live stream video of Victoria kicking down my door while wearing a wire unknowingly recorded her admitting to multiple crimes. The prosecution called me as a witness. I testified about the harassment, about Victoria targeting Tyler, about the threats and intimidation. I showed the court videos of her throwing Tyler's fishing rod into the lake and telling him he didn't belong. The defense tried to paint Victoria as a dedicated volunteer who'd made administrative mistakes and who was being persecuted for enforcing community standards. Then the prosecution played the video from the cabin. 3,000 people had watched it live. Millions had watched it since on YouTube and news sites. The jury watched Victoria kick down a door, scream about her authority, and assault a state official, all while live streaming it herself. Deliberation took 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. William Blackwell's trial was separate, but ended the same way. Guilty on all counts. Sentencing came 6 weeks later. The courtroom was packed with victims. Over 100 homeowners from across 3 counties attended. People Victoria had harassed, defrauded, and driven from their homes. The judge allowed victim impact statements. 17 people spoke. The Garrisons talked about their granddaughter being harassed. The Patterson family described years of vandalism. James Wu described the arson that destroyed his boathouse. I spoke last. Your Honor, my name is Robert Henley. My grandfather built a cabin on Lake Serenity in 1947. 4 generations of my family have found peace there. When I inherited that cabin, I brought my grandson Tyler, who just lost his mother. He was grieving and needed a safe place to heal. Instead, he encountered Victoria Blackwell, who decided a 10-year-old boy was a threat to her power. She harassed him. She stalked him. She went to his school and told him his grandfather was a criminal. She threw his fishing rod into the lake and told him he didn't belong. Tyler is in therapy dealing with trauma from losing his mother. Victoria added trauma on top of trauma. She terrorized a grieving child because she enjoyed having power over people. This isn't about HOA disputes or property values. This is about someone who hurt children, destroyed families, and stole millions of dollars because she could, because nobody stopped her. I'm asking this court to make sure she never has power over anyone again. The judge listened to every statement. Then he looked at Victoria, who showed no remorse even then. Ms. Blackwell, you abused a position of trust. You stole from your neighbors. You harassed families and targeted children. You showed no mercy, no compassion, and no respect for the law. You will receive none from this court. The court sentences you to 23 years in federal prison. You will pay full restitution of $4.2 million, jointly with your co-conspirators. You are permanently banned from serving in any HOA or community organization role. Your actions destroyed lives. You traumatized children. You deserve every day of this sentence. Victoria was led away screaming that it wasn't fair, that she'd done nothing wrong, that everyone was lying. William Blackwell received 18 years. The other 4 HOA presidents received sentences ranging from 8 to 15 years each. The aftermath of the trials brought unexpected changes. The Texas legislature, responding to public outrage over the case, passed comprehensive HOA reform legislation called the Henley Act, named in honor of my grandfather Jack Henley. The law required annual independent audits of all HOAs with budgets over $50,000. Criminal background checks for HOA board members. Mandatory transparency in financial records. Formal appeals processes for violations. Protections against retaliatory enforcement. And criminal penalties, including mandatory prison time, for HOA officials who harassed homeowners or embezzled funds. Governor signed it with me and Tyler present. Tyler got to keep one of the ceremonial pens used to sign the law. The restitution money from Victoria and her co-conspirators was distributed to victims. I received $47,000 for legal fees and damages. I put it all in a college fund for Tyler. The Lake Serenity community transformed. Without Victoria's tyranny, neighbors who'd been afraid to talk to each other started building real community. The HOA was dissolved entirely and replaced with a voluntary neighborhood association focused on actual community building rather than enforcement. Property values, which Victoria claimed to protect, actually increased once her harassment ended and people wanted to live there again. Tyler healed. It took time, therapy, and patience, but gradually the nightmares stopped. He started fishing again without fear. He made friends with other kids at the lake. He laughed more. One afternoon, a year after Victoria's sentencing, Tyler and I were on the dock. He just caught a largemouth bass, a good 3-pounder. "Grandpa, do you think great-great-grandpa Jack would be proud of us?" "I know he would be, buddy. Because we didn't let the bad lady take his cabin. Because we stood up for what was right. Because we didn't run away when things got hard. And because we protected something worth protecting." Tyler thought about that while he released the bass back into the lake. "I'm glad we stayed." "Me too, buddy, me too." The story didn't end there. Netflix produced a documentary called The Lake Wars, how a grandpa and grandson took down a criminal HOA empire. It premiered 2 years after the trial and became one of their most-watched documentaries. Tyler and I watched it together in the cabin. He was 13 by then, taller, more confident, and still the kind, brave kid his mother would have been proud of. "It's weird seeing our story like this," he said. "Yeah, but if it helps other people stand up to bullies, it's worth it." "Do you think Mom would be proud?" "I know she would. You were so brave, Tyler. You went through something no kid should have to go through, and you came out the other side stronger." "I had help," he looked at me. "Thanks for not giving up, Grandpa. Thanks for being worth fighting for, buddy." We got letters from all over the country. Families facing HOA abuse, asking for advice. I couldn't help everyone, but I answered every letter. I shared what I'd learned. Document everything, know your rights, find allies, report crimes to proper authorities, and never let bullies make you feel like you don't belong in your own home. Some of those families won their battles, some lost, but they all fought, and that mattered. The cabin still stands on Lake Serenity. 4 generations have called it home now. Tyler talks about bringing his own kids there someday. The dock his great-great-grandfather built still stands. The lake still holds bass and peace and memories. Victoria Blackwell sits in federal prison, her power gone, her empire destroyed, her name a cautionary tale. She's eligible for parole in 2038. She'll be 74 years old. I suspect she'll die in prison, unmourned and unremembered, except as a warning about what happens when small people get power and use it to hurt others. The Lake Serenity community thrives. Children play on the docks without fear. Families gather without looking over their shoulders. Neighbors help each other instead of reporting each other. And on summer evenings, Tyler and I still sit on the porch, watching the sun set over the lake, knowing we're exactly where we belong. If you're reading this and you're facing an HOA nightmare, if someone with a little bit of power is making your life hell, if you're being harassed or threatened or told you don't belong in your own home, remember this: you are. Document everything. Know your rights. Find allies. Report crimes. And don't give up, because bullies only win when good people stop fighting. Victoria Blackwell had connections to the highest levels of state government. She had years of experience terrorizing people. She had money and lawyers and a nephew in the sheriff's department. She seemed untouchable, but she wasn't. Nobody is. When we stood up, when we fought back with evidence and law and determination, she fell. And if we could do it, you can too. Your home is worth fighting for. Your family is worth protecting. Your peace is worth defending. Don't let anyone take that from you. Not an HOA president, not a corrupt official, not anyone. Stand your ground. Document the abuse, report the crimes, find people who will stand with you, and fight, because sometimes that's the only way to win. Tyler was 10 years old when Victoria Blackwell started targeting him. He's 15 now, and he's never been afraid of standing up to bullies. He knows that doing the right thing isn't always easy, but it's always worth it. That's the lesson his mother would have wanted him to learn. That's the lesson Jack Henley built this cabin to protect. That's the lesson we fought for and won. And that's the lesson I'm sharing with you now. Don't give up. Don't give in. Don't let the bullies win. Fight for your home. Fight for your family. Fight for what's right. And remember that somewhere in Texas, a grandpa and his grandson proved that even the most powerful bullies can fall when ordinary people refuse to back down. We did it for our family. We did it for our home. We did it for the memory of those who came before us and the future of those who'll come after. And if you're facing your own battle, do it for the same reasons. Your story matters. Your home matters. You matter. Now go fight for it.